Hey, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you guys are coming in from. My name is Craig Birch. I'm with Cayosoft, and I'm going to be leading the Guardian Protector community hours for those that don't know me. I'm going to wait a few seconds before we get started for a couple more to join. We had a pretty high registration rate for this first community hours, so I do appreciate everybody taking the time to join. We do have the Q&A open as well as the chat. So if you have a question, pop it into the chat or the Q&A section, and I'll try my best to address that as quickly as possible. So we will get started here in about another minute or so. Hopefully, if you guys can just kind of give me a thumbs up saying that, hey, that you can see my presentation, and everybody's seeing it right now. Thanks. All right. Well, it is 1 after, so let's go ahead and get started. So again, you're here for the community hour for Guardian Protector. It is our first community hour of 2026. So welcome to our first community hour, and a happy new year for those that have never joined the community hour. This is your chance really to ask me anything about Guardian Protector. I'm going to go through a demonstration of the solution, use a couple slides to kind of highlight what Guardian Protector is, and an overview of the architecture, etc. So let's start there. So what is Cayosoft Guardian Protector? So Guardian Protector is really a real-time threat detection and change monitoring solution with built-in alerts. So those alerts can go to either email or also your Microsoft Teams environment. And really what it was built for was a couple different reasons. If you think about how old Active Directory is, it'll be turning 26 years on February 17th from basically a GA perspective. And there's really some shrinking AD expertise because that group of individuals may be ready to retire, or maybe even have retired, as well as we're seeing newer folks joining organizations and just now getting involved in Active Directory. I've seen that quite a bit as well. So that was one of the reasons. But that's not the only reason. So Guardian Protector is beyond just Active Directory security and Entra ID security. And the reason being is we saw an expanding attack surface. We saw that attack surface expand into things like Exchange Online, Microsoft Teams, as well as Microsoft Intune can be an attack vector for organizations. And if we looked at the current solutions, and there are a lot of good free tools out there, so do not take this wrong. So there are a lot of great free solutions out there, but most of those solutions will go out and basically ingest your current state of the state. You'll run a scan and then basically come back and tell you what's wrong and maybe help you fix and remediate those vulnerabilities. And that's great for initial hardening, but we all know that these environments are not static by nature. And if we're not constantly looking at our environments, we could get ourselves in trouble. So that's where we also saw a gap, is that none of the free solutions out there really had real-time or near real-time visibility across the entire ecosystem. So being able to detect changes that occur within your environment in a free solution. If you wanted that type of capability, you had to step up and purchase an enterprise class solution. So we had Cayosoft Guardian, which is basically our core solution, which is a paid solution. And when I joined Cayosoft, I said, okay, we make part of the solution free for the community because we're really trying to address really ransomware risks, identity takeover and such in an organization, and really be able to give that to anybody who wants to download it and run it with no charge at all, right? So basically you download the software, you run it in your environment, and I'll explain to you what that architecture looks like here in a second. So that's what it is. And the main user, it can be really used by IT security leads and SOC analysts as well. So for incident response, our sysadmins and identity engineers, even our compliance and audit teams. And really, I would say it was targeted for, pretty much everyone, but mid-market to enterprise IT teams as well, but also commercial and small business. So again, if we look at solutions out there being free, this is one that will basically give you the real-time change monitoring, threat detection, as well as real-time alerts going into your system. I'm not going to hit on any more slides until the end. I'm going to get into the product so we can kind of talk about the architecture. So let's talk high level about Guardian Protector architecture. So what is required? Well, the first thing is required is you need to have a Windows server. So you need to have a Windows server, and you need to have a couple of service accounts or an account that can create some service accounts or Entra ID applications. So once you've downloaded, installed Guardian Protector, and I'm actually going to push a link in the chat here, and this is the how-to guide on our Reddit. We built a dedicated Reddit. So this basically takes you through the full solution, basically telling you, hey, this is exactly the system requirements, the service accounts, but I'm going to hit on that at a high level as well. So again, Windows Server, on the back end, it's using Microsoft SQL to collect the data. We have to have somewhere to put the data. You can use SQL Express, but you can also use Enterprise SQL, whether that's on-prem SQL or if you want to use Cloud SQL as well. It's fully supported with the product. Again, this is based off of our core Guardian product. And the reason why that's important is this is a live product. We're constantly updating this product, whether it's just adding new threat definitions, and we'll get into that, or enhancing the capabilities of what we can see within inside of the Microsoft ecosystem. So we've added recent releases since the Guardian Protector. I think we've had 3 releases since then. So it's constantly being updated. It's not an open source solution, but it is free. And that's the difference between open source, right? Because open source is, hey, we're going to basically make updates when we can ever get around it. This is actually a commercial product that is being fully developed on a regular basis. And I'm actually part of the product team. So I'm not in sales by any means. And Guardian Protector, I'll kind of say it's my baby. So I have been involved with Guardian Protector since day one. I hope build some of the threat definitions and get them over to our dev team, as well as look at new areas to improve. I'm the one that started the Reddit community for Guardian Protector, so I hope you guys join the Reddit. But let's kind of talk about it. So again, we need a Windows server and we need some SQL on the back end. So from a service account perspective, to add an Active Directory domain, what I would suggest is you're going to start with an account that has schema admin rights. And I explain this because when you initially add the group managed service account, it needs to get certain permissions across all partitions in your Active Directory. The group managed service account does not have schema admin rights, so it only has read access and replication rights into your Active Directory, as well as being able to then have read at the schema, domain, partitions, etc. So once that account is initially created, you're not using that account anymore. You can remove your account out of schema admin rights, and basically it's now running with what we'll call a low privilege GMSA within the organization. If you're going to connect this to Entra ID, and I highly recommend that if you're a hybrid environment, you're going to start out with an account that has global administrator rights. The account itself that we run with does not have global admin rights, but it needs the global admin rights initially to create an Entra ID application. That Entra ID application then gets created. It is using read-only access inside your environment. By default, there is an option to give elevated rights, but for Guardian Protector, it's not needed. That's for our core product if you want to use automated rollback. So again, we only need read-only access. And that's true for Active Directory for the most part in regards to group managed service account for most of the threats. Now, I will say there are some password checks that we do. It does require a legacy elevated service account, but that's completely optional for you guys to turn that on. We're not telling you to turn that on by default. Maybe you do not need the additional password checks, or maybe you initially turn it on and then run through and see which ones are vulnerable and then go back to a GMSA. So there's a couple different ways you can kind of address that, but I wanted to kind of get that out there. So once you've downloaded and installed the product, the first thing you're probably going to see is an email that looks like this, and it's going to say Craig from Cayosoft, right? So then that's basically saying, hey, we're going to go out and register. You're going to need a company email address to activate the product, etc. But make sure you look for Craig from Cayosoft right now, because we've noticed that some people are downloading and then they're not activating, and we suspect that they're not seeing that email. So check for that. Again, I'm kind of like the lead on Guardian Protector in regards to running the community. And so that's why it's coming from me to really, so it doesn't get blocked from spam, etc. So now that we have Guardian Protector installed and configured, through, we have it connected to our Active Directory, right? We can see that. We can see that we have it connected to our Entra ID tenants. And this is the main page. So here we're in Guardian Protector. And what we have here is we've now, you can see the jobs are running. We've had successful jobs. When you first add in your domains in your tenants, it's basically we'll have a banner up here that says we're ingesting data for the first time. So then once it's done, what I'm going to suggest next is go out and check for the latest threat definitions. Now, you will only need to do this initially on the first install. Once you do this initial check, it's going to go out once a day and check for you automatically for new threat as long as your system's online. The next thing is, once it's done its check, and I'm pretty sure I'm up to date, so 12, you can see that basically here's the version, right, 12.25. Actually, we have some new threats, or actually, yeah, well, so we have a new update coming out. I'm not going to update it right now, but I can configure this later. So the very next thing I want to do is run the threats. This is the first time. Again, this runs in the background automatically, but I'm just going to kick it off so you can see it's going to go out and ingest this current state of the state. So what is it doing right now? It's going out after it's basically connected to your Entra ID and M365 services, Intune, Active Directory. The first thing it's going out and doing is ingesting your current state. So it's ingesting your current state. It's reading in all those objects. It's then running it through, we'll just call it an analysis engine inside of the threat detection capability. And it's running it against around 250 plus checks, which is really about 160 threat signatures or definitions, but they do multiple checks. So about 250 checks. And what are we looking for? We're looking for what we'll call misconfigurations inside your environment that would allow for lateral movement and privilege escalation. You may hear the term identity security posture management, and that's the first part. That's exactly what we're doing, and going out and telling you exactly which ones are in your environment. Once you do that, once it's done, you can actually come in and download your summary report, and you'll see it in the reports job here. So we'll kind of go over and look at the jobs. So there's two main jobs that are always kind of running. We can see the threat detection is running in the background, but we also have the threat summary report. I can go ahead and grab that, go to reports, and now I can open up my latest report. So I want to go ahead and download that. And what I want to start with is getting the current state of my posture. And this is where a lot of solutions out there, like I said, free tools are really good at helping you understand this. Now, what I will say is we have two ways that we rank things. The first one is severity, and the second one is remediation complexity. So severity basically goes from critical to information. Obviously, critical and higher, the most vulnerable in your environment. Critical really means if someone was able to take advantage of one of these misconfigurations, it could lead to a tenant takeover or a domain takeover. High, again, it's a high risk for your organization. And remediation complexity is not based on technical complexity, as like how hard is this for the admin to remediate this. We try to take a balanced approach and look at, okay, if we went in and performed the remediation in your environment, what's the likelihood this is going to have an adverse effect on your organization, whether it be an application or a large group of users, etc. So we kind of took that into consideration. That's what we built our remediation complexity. Now, there's no exact science in regards to that because every organization is different. So what I will say is it's really for a guide. So you use it to kind of give you an idea of where to get started, because it's great to know where you're vulnerable and understand that you have these vulnerabilities, but you really need to be able to have a plan that you can put in place to start remediating these vulnerabilities. So what do I tell folks? I actually say, why don't you start with the most critical, lowest complexity items out of the gate? So for example, right, we found here we're running the print spoiler on a domain controller, and which we know that's not something we should run. So we're going to go ahead and we have that listed as a critical and also as a low complexity. Why? Because if I turn off the print spoiler on the domain controller, it's not going to break anything in my environment unless that domain controller is also truly a print server, which shouldn't be. in your organization. So keep that in mind. Again, from a severity or remediation complexity, we have it very low. It should be low impact. But again, if you're using it as a print server, it could be high impact. Again, but most people don't not have their print server running on their domain controller. So again, one of the things that we will tell you is not only, hey, here is the severity and remediation complexity, we're going to give you the threat description, the remediation advice, as well as what's causing this to trigger in your environment. So keep that in mind as well. So again, that is the threat summary report. That's going to help you understand where you're currently weak, and you might have some, I will say weak, but more opportunity to further bolster your security posture, whether it be in Active Directory, Entra ID, Intune, etc. So that's the first part. But because it also has its own real-time scanning behind the scenes, this really also then turns into not just indicators of exposure or indicators of compromise. These also turn into indicators of attack. So if someone's going in, making these changes in real time, it could be a sign of an indicator of attack in your environment. So the first thing, again, you kind of go out, you identify where you have opportunity to strengthen and bolster your posture. You follow the remediation guidance, and I call it guidance. So make sure that you verify everything. It is guidance. The remediation complexity, again, is there's no real true way of saying for every environment it's going to be the same. It depends on your organization. So use that, kind of get an idea of where to start. And then from there, put your plan together, start hardening your environment. But then the next step is once we harden, we want to make sure that we stay in that pristine state. So we need to have something that's going to then continuously monitor our environment and alert us when we start to drift, or we can see changes that may even not be related to threats, just could be just regular changes in our environment. We need to have some visibility inside of there. So let's talk about some of those changes. So the first thing you'll see is inside of change history. I can filter. I have some quick filters. I have all changes in my environment. We have like all critical changes, but we can also filter by platform. So let's go in and look at, I only want to see only Active Directory changes in our environment. So I'll call these our quick filters. So this is only going to show me Active Directory changes in our environment. If I want to go in and see, I knew that, this individual made a change in my environment and I know who it is, and I want to see what changes they may have made. I'm going to pick on this guy named Craig Birch. So I'm going to look for changes by Craig Birch in Active Directory. So basically now I can filter it down for, let me run this filter here. Should be able to get a fit only to Craig from the hood. For some reason my filter is not working. Hang on a second. It's told me to upgrade, but I shouldn't have to. That might be something I need to report. You should be able to filter this without having to hit the upgrade button because it limits to 14 days. Oh, there. Run query. Sorry. Didn't see it. So now I can actually filter. That's what it was. So I had it all time, and this is because we're only storing 14 days. That's on me. I should have caught that. But basically now I can filter it to only things that Craig Birch did within the last 24 hours. This will actually go back to 2 weeks in that environment as well. So we can go back and look from things. So again, we can apply different filters. I can go back in and say, it's not just Craig Birch. I want to also look at Craig Birch and Entra as well. Let's see what he may have done. So let's put in C Birch. We can find another one. And this is going to be my Entra account. Again, all I need to do is apply that query. I would put it to all changes. Now we can see everything that particular account did in our environment. So we can actually take those filters off. Again, open it back up, save, run query, and now it's going to put it against all changes regardless of who made the change. So again, we can track things very easily, Entra ID, Active Directory, etc. So let's go back to Active Directory to kind of focus on some changes. So let's go back to our quick filter in Active Directory. And now I want to select some changes. And again, I'm looking for just changes for today. So I could go back and basically refresh, apply this. So I'm going to actually make some changes. Open this up for 7 days. So now I'm basically seeing this is Active Directory users change. That's why you have to, again, all Active Directory changes. Now that's the filter we want. So again, human mistake, but basically there's quick filters. You can filter by 80 user changes, group changes. I want all Active Directory changes in my environment. Now you can see things that we're picking up. So things like someone created a new group policy or updated a group policy setting. So we can actually go in and see that this group policy version, we're now turning on auditing for NTLM authentication. So basically I created a group policy on domain controller policy to do some auditing to see which accounts are using NTLM authentication. So in that case, it's probably something good. But again, we can see that easily in our environment. We can see that somebody named Craig Birch was also creating some new policies around authentication policies and silos. So we can see like what's going on in regards to those settings. So again, remember we have the before and after of all those changes, and it's each change. So we see that basically this is when this is when it was created, this is when it was updated. We can see that, hey, we assigned this user to the policy. So we're basically the MSOL account was being assigned to this policy. So again, we can see all of those things in our environment, which quickly helps us triage things in our organization. For example, I'm going to go in behind the scenes here and just going to delegate some control to this accounting group. I'm doing this live behind the scenes. I'm going to give this accounting group inside of my Active Directory, and you'll see it here pop, some permissions at the root of AD. So I'm going to do create, delete, but you're not seeing me do this, and then you'll see it in here, modify, join, those types of things. Things I really would maybe want the accounting team to do. But sometimes mistakes happen. So I'm going to just actually, if we hit the refresh, we see basically what's going on here, right? So again, we're going to then see this Craig Birch guy. He went in and updated these permissions for that was earlier. This is the one I just did. Now we can see exactly what accounting was being granted to. So they never were inside of Active Directory in regards to having any kind of delegated permissions. Someone made a mistake and, went in and, they gave all these rights to the accounting group. We wouldn't want the accounting group to have that. So we can see that in real time. You're also going to see some threat alerts come in here in a second as well. So again, it's helping us see those changes that could be admin related, but that also could be a threat actor performing this activity in your environment as well, whether they're trying to, once they got elevated rights, to create some persistence inside of your Active Directory. And the one thing I will say is Guardian Protector, we are using the event logs to just fill in what we call the initiator or the who did the change, but we are not using the event logs to detect the change. We're actually using the replication stream or DirSync API, however you want to say it, inside of Active Directory. So we're getting it directly from the source. And the same thing with Entra ID. So we're not going out and getting the unified access logs or the security logs within Entra ID. We're for the initial change. We're doing it through observational change. What do I mean by that? We're actually calling Graph API behind the scenes, grabbing those changes near real time. Now I'm going to say it's not real time, but it's near real time because we have network, etc. in play. And the reason why that's important is if you are under a real attack, so think about being under a real attack. Attackers are smart. They're going to go after your endpoint detection response. You need these things, so do not take this out of context. They'll go after your endpoint detection response, and they're most likely going to go after your SIM's capability. Maybe not your SIM directly, but what do I mean by your SIM's capability? They can go in, once they have elevated rights, they can actually change audit policy inside your environment, which means you're not probably going to see all the signals that you need to see, as well as clear event logs in your environment. With Guardian Protector, you're still going to see the change. Where we would then be blind is on who made the change, but you would have the activity in regards to that. And we would have the who if they didn't clear the event logs when we captured the event. It'd be more of a race condition from that aspect. But again, it's at least going to give you an idea of what changed in your environment. You may not have the who in that scenario. So that's the reason why we did observational change management or monitoring inside of Guardian Protector and not rely on traditional SIM capability. Now you can configure alerting to go a couple different places. So I did say real-time alerts. So we can actually go in and set up different communication channels, and you can create multiple communication channels. By the way, you can have, maybe you have communication channels dedicated for a certain severity, or maybe by platform. For example, you can say, hey, I only want changes for Active Directory to go to the Active Directory team because we have a separate team that manages Entra, etc. So there is some flexibility there. The two channels that we support is SMTP, so we'll just say email, right? So whether that be Exchange or Exchange Online or even another mail server. And Microsoft Teams. So we support Microsoft Teams. Folks that are using Microsoft 365 are also using Microsoft Teams on a daily basis. So you can set it up to actually alert you directly in your Microsoft Teams channels. And then that way you're not waiting for those alerts. Now we also have alerts in Portal, but you're not going to use in Portal alerts. It's nice to see if you are in the portal, but you're really going to configure these alerts. And especially, I would say, I would focus on, for alerting initially, maybe start with just critical. Well, actually, I would say medium, high, and critical to send in initially in your environment. If medium is too high, maybe you have too many alerts coming in because of just regular activity, you can actually back that out to only then be your critical and high. Or maybe you have a channel for medium, and you have a channel, if you're sending it into Teams, for critical, again, from that aspect. So again, it's very flexible inside of Microsoft Teams, as well as Exchange. You can send it to multiple places inside your environment. I'll kind of show you some alerts inside of the environment. Here are some alerts within Active Directory. I think I might have this one configured. Yep, this one's only going to Entra. So I broke them out by platform, but I'm the only administrator in here. So basically, that's just for me to be able to sort them very easy inside of the platform. So again, alerts, we fully support going to both SMTP and Microsoft Teams, and you can have alerts go to different places. You can actually get so granular to say, like, this threat can go only to a specific channel, etc. Really depends on what you want to do. Folks, I think will use it. Like I said, what I'll see is if they're centrally managing both Active Directory and Entra ID, they're going to send it all to one place. But if there is another team that's doing AD and maybe the other one's doing Entra ID, or maybe your Exchange team is not tied to your Entra ID and your Active Directory team, so maybe you have a collaboration team that's responsible for Exchange Online, Teams, maybe even Intune. So you can send those alerts directly to that team versus yourself. As far as the threat alerts, you have a couple of things we can do. So we can actually go in, obviously, we can go in and resolve the alert. Let's see if this is one I would want to go. Maybe not this one. But if you wanted to go in, you can actually go in and say resolve the alert, and you can also add target to exclusion. This one would not be a good example of using target to exclusion. If I add target to exclusion, you can also put in the reason for your exclusion. So where might that come into play? Maybe you have a server with unconstrained delegation inside your organization. We've identified it as a threat, and then you realize that, hey, that server, it really requires unconstrained delegation. We have some mitigating controls around it. You want to go in and exclude it because you don't want to get pestered about the condition anymore. So you go in and it'll basically say, we accept this risk. Maybe it went to RAB exception, etc., whatever your process is, and now you want to exclude it from your alert. If you do not want to exclude it anymore, you can actually go in directly to the threat definition and go in and remove that exclusion as well. So in the side of the threat definition, there's settings. You would see as part of that settings if there's any kind of exclusions associated with it as well. You would see it here. If it was in there, you would just click delete and then save, and then that would then pick back up on the next time it runs. So again, you can see it's going to help you first identify where you have weaknesses or opportunities to clean up and harden your Active Directory Entra ID, as well as Intune, Exchange Online, and Teams. We have threats around those. We have the remediation guidance. So again, we will teach you exactly, I'll say roughly what the threat, we'll give you a threat description, and I'll call this remediation guidance. It's, you need to, verify it. We also list the remediation complexity, again, in regards to that. Again, AD domain controller not changing his password. Most likely that's maybe a stale domain controller metadata cleanup from your environment, or let's pick on, I have this password. So you can actually filter as well for certain things. Here, I have an AD object with non-default permissions on admin SD holder. I actually have quite a few alerts there. I can see which objects in there in regards to that. We can dig in and see the evidence, what it is inside the environment, etc. And we know that the admin SD holder is critical for securing our administrative access. If you're not familiar with it, it basically is a container within inside of Active Directory that is used by a process. We used to think it was SD prop, but when somebody else educated us and said, hey, it's not really SD prop anymore, but it is a backend process that runs every 60 minutes inside your Active Directory, then takes those permissions and puts them across your building groups. So think of your protected groups, so domain admins, scheme admins, etc. So you want to really monitor that. And we know that Microsoft Exchange, older Exchange servers, got granted a few rights to admin SD holder. We'd look for those types of things, help you clean those up. Again, harden your environment. It's not just we identify accounts that don't have MFA, things like, hey, you're missing conditional access policies in Entra ID. Your guest settings aren't right. There's all kinds of settings and checks we're doing across the board. And from the change history perspective, again, it's not just Active Directory. We can go in and filter, again, some quick filters. Let me just go all Entra ID changes. And now I can quickly see that, hey, we were noticing that this new user, we saw that basically the agent registry administrator Entra role, we've seen someone to get added as a permanent role. This isn't what we call a privileged role within inside of Entra ID, but because they don't consider it, but it would allow you to register agents inside your environment. So we do want to kind of alert on that. We can see that Albert is in there, as well as this is a privileged role within Entra ID. So this application administrator, we can see that Albert was given direct membership and it's assigned. Right, so it's permanently assigned. It's not just eligible. So that's a risk. We can see that someone actually went in and deleted a legacy MFA policy. And we can also see that, hey, in this one, in our legacy authentication policy, that look, someone excluded the all company group. So now anybody that's in that group, that could bring a risk to our organization, because now the all company group is excluded from blocking legacy authentication. And we know that attackers like to use, abuse things like legacy authentication inside of your environment. So that's another one. We also detect things like Entra application. So here I can see that we went in and this user had a certificate, and then it was this was two changes. This is a client secret, and they also had a certificate, and it was been removed. But then the next thing we notice in here is that we also see that a certificate was added to the patient portal application. And maybe you have a policy that says, hey, we don't allow certificate-based authentication, or hey, we noticed that this cert is not one of our certs, so it could be a sign of compromise inside your environment as well. So again, you can filter on Entra ID. Those are the quick filters. I'm going to go back to all changes. So it's not just quick filters you can run. You can also look at like different properties inside of the environment and look at the different object. Maybe you want to look at certificate templates, configurations. You can see all of these things that you can apply in your environment. Maybe you want to look at only 80 site changes. I don't think I made any 80 site changes. Subnet changes, we can definitely look at 80 user, so we can actually run that query, always run that query. So basically now we're just filtering on basically user properties, but maybe I want to look at action as well. So maybe I don't care about created for new user accounts, right? So query, so that takes that out. Now I just want to filter it. Did I add created? I did. So now I am only filtering on created. I only want to look at modified. So now I'm looking at only modified. So we can further filter it down to get what we need to behind the scenes. The other thing is, I will say you can do advanced queries. It is using OData behind the scenes. You can actually grab, export this out to JSON, and you can see all the properties. And then you can build even more advanced queries for additional filtering. But we give you a lot of filtering natively out of the box so that you don't have to build a lot of custom filters. And you can pretty much filter on any property that we collect inside of the change monitoring. So again, the first thing it helps you do is understand where you have weaknesses, helps you clean up those weaknesses. And then with the change monitoring, it's going to help you keep from moving away from what I'll call daily administrative drift, as well as if there's something malicious going on in your environment, you're going to get real-time alerts, whether that you're sending it into email or again into Microsoft Teams from that aspect. So hopefully you guys are seeing, I don't know if you have downloaded Guardian Protector. If you have not, I can put the link in there as well so we can that you can go out and download that. Let me go ahead and throw the download link in there for those that may have not downloaded it in the environment. So let me just go to, I'll put our Reddit in there as well. So here is the link for the download. And here is the main link to our Reddit. Go back. We'd love for you to download and experience Guardian, as well as join the Reddit. So I put, I think that's the Reddit. So basically, you can go join the Reddit. I put tips and tricks out there on a regular basis. Also new releases. With this latest release, we added some new capability into looking at QR code authentication methods. That did require us to have some updated Entra ID permissions. Those permissions that basically then you had to go out and re-grant permissions. So if we add something that requires additional permissions, it will require a re-grant because we do not have elevated access to grant that access, nor would we want to. You need to know what you're granting access to from a security perspective, especially in Entra ID application access, because that is a attack vector often used by ransomware groups. So again, read-only access, but we did have a new setting that needed read for setting inside of there. So we put that out there in the Reddit. We probably have releases, I will say, we have threat releases once a month. So look for those new threats. Again, I'll put the releases in the Reddit as well. And then as far as Guardian releases, we usually have them once a quarter, but sometimes we have more frequently depending on maintenance release or if there's something new that we need to get out because of something urgent in the environment. So again, Guardian Protector is based on our paid version. So any new enhancements to what we call our Guardian solution, most of those will roll into Protector as well. So like again, being able to now basically look at QR code authentication was one we put in with the last release in the environment. So that release is already live. That's what it was prompting me to update. Yours will automatically update for you once the release goes GA. If you always have it on, in which I would recommend. Obviously in my lab, I don't have it always on. So it will automatically go out and pull down the release. It will notify you. It'll put a banner in there that says, hey, you have an update pending, and you can apply that. And it'll also take you to the release notes page. You can click on that and say what's new, and it will take you directly into the release notes. You can see exactly what's going on. So again, this is constantly being developed, and we look forward to feedback from in the communities. So if you need support, Reddit is your way that you get support for Guardian Protector, and I am the main moderator for the community, but we have several other moderators as well. So if there's a question you have, again, check out the wiki. I tried to make the wiki as detailed as possible. If there's something you feel that's missing, put it out there for a discussion. We definitely want to have an active discussion. If there's something you feel like, hey, I don't understand, or maybe it's not working the way that I thought it was going to work, or hey, have you guys thought about this? I love to get feedback. I'm always trying to improve what we can do with Guardian Protector and Guardian as a whole. So if there's something you're saying, hey, looks like this would be a good thing for Guardian and Guardian Protector, put it out there. I'm not saying we'll automatically put it in there, but we can definitely take it into consideration. We'd love to know what you like and what you feel like could improve in regards to that. I'm going to go back to the slides for one quick second, just to kind of close, because this did come up on several other calls from community hours. You could hit the QR code. I'm not a big fan of QR codes from a security perspective, but this is our free Guardian. This is also our threat directory in our environment. And then again, I put the Reddit in there as well. If you join the Reddit, all of this stuff is on the main Reddit. The download, the threat directory, the entire wiki, the how-to, the getting started videos. And that's what I would say is once you download it, you got your server ready, look at the like go to the how-to, look at the prerequisites, understand the service accounts you're going to need, or the permissions you need to create the service account, and as well as for the Entra application. And watch the how-to videos. There's one for install and config, and there's also one for setting up your communication channels. There's also some tips and tricks out there as well from videos on, hey, I want to be able to do some advanced filtering, things that we kind of covered here, but even more in depth in some of those videos. We will release more videos and we'll update our wiki based on your feedback from the community. So if there's something you want to know specifically around a threat, ask in the Reddit. Maybe somebody beyond me or one of a member of the community may have gone through that, has an explanation, or maybe we have something as a critical and you may think that maybe it's not a critical, and ask that as well. There's ways, or the complexity, we have it set lower and you guys think it should be higher. We'd love to hear feedback from that as well. Again, anything to improve, but really we want it to be a community. We're going to have community hour every month. I think that's the right cadence for Guardian Protector. If you follow the Reddit, go there, but you can also follow me on LinkedIn. I put a lot of stuff out around Guardian Protector on LinkedIn. I also put other stuff out there on LinkedIn as well. So if you want to follow and learn more around some other areas, and other events, please feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. But I do appreciate your time. I'm going to open it up for questions. I didn't see anything come in, but I do want to open it up for questions for the last few minutes. So if there's questions, pop them into the Q&A or chat, and I'll do my best to get those answered for you. If you've downloaded Guardian Protector, can you put basically, yes, I've downloaded it. I'm just trying to get an understanding of this audience are ones that have already downloaded it or trying to learn more about it, or maybe it's a mix, so I can build my content for the next one. So if you've downloaded it, just put a yes in the chat. If not, then you put a no. That again, I want to make sure that I'm bringing a lot of value to the folks that are using it, as well as to the folks that may have not used it. So for those that haven't used it, please go ahead and give it a try. It's absolutely free. Guardian Protector itself is free. You can use it forever. If you want to try some of the advanced features, you can. We're not pushing you to do that. That's entirely up to you. So please give me feedback. Definitely join the Reddit community if you haven't, if you've downloaded it, to get some more information. So it sounds like we have kind of mix. Hopefully you guys got something out of Guardian, learning more about Guardian Protector. If there's something specific that I didn't cover, throw it out there, either here or put it on the Reddit, and we'll go ahead and get that answered. I do appreciate you guys. How is the full product license? It's licensed. So I just saw that come across. So Steve, it's actually licensed per enabled user object is the best way to say it. So if you want Guardian, there's two. There's basically what we call Guardian Audit Restore. That's going to give you the rollback capability across, Active Directory, object level restore, and then we also have Guardian Instant Forced Recovery, which then is the next step up, and that allows you to have instant forced recovery. If you want to learn more about those, you can ping me directly on LinkedIn. I can set you up with somebody if you want to learn more around that capability. I will only offer that for the ones that really are looking for the paid solution. I'm not trying to push the paid solution. I'm here to help the community with Guardian Protector. Again, I'm not in sales. I'm on the product side, but I will get you to the right people because I do work for Cayosoft, and I want to be able to, if you're interested in a paid solution, definitely get you to the right people. I'm not really the person on the sales side to really talk to that, but it is per enabled user at a high level. Any other questions? Okay, I work with a potential partner that has a product that complements this case. So I'm just making sure there wasn't anything that you guys had that I didn't ask. So a lot of folks are kind of in the middle, right? Some download it, haven't installed it. Some has it fully running. Some haven't downloaded it. So again, if you haven't downloaded, nothing to lose. Go out, download it, see how it's going to work in your environment, give it a shot. It's open for anybody. So it gives you, if you have an EDR, you have a SIM, it's just another layer of visibility into your environment, another layer of protection. So definitely give it a shot, give it a try. I do appreciate it, and I look forward to the next one. We'll get something out in regards to when the next community hour will be. Obviously, that'll be posted on our main Cayosoft website, but I also put it in the Reddit as well as upcoming events, and also on LinkedIn. And tips and tricks on Reddit, I also throw them out on LinkedIn if there's something that I think that will benefit the whole community. And I really believe that Guardian Protector, there is a lot of value that you can get just with the change monitoring aspect, but also getting some of the real-time alerts around threat movement as well. So again, really appreciate your time, and I hope you guys enjoyed this community hour. Stay tuned for the next one, and we'll see you then. Thank you. And for Brian, it can be, yes, GMSA is read only. That is correct. All right. There's no other questions. We will see you on the next community hour. Thank you.